Hello my friends, welcome back to another painting lesson in oil painting. This is Easy Oil Painting, the channel which aims to help you develop your skills as an oil painter from beginning right up to even advanced. I like to try and keep things simple, and I sometimes like to go a little bit further and add lots of detail and create lots of different aspects in the painting. But for the most part, I like to try and keep things nice and simple for people to learn different techniques in oil painting. This week, I'm going to paint a nice Irish cottage. I've had a lot of responses, a lot of positive feedback from the last one I did a couple of weeks back, a lovely little cottage. So I'm going to try another one. It's from a different sort of an angle and stuff like that. If you're trying to learn how to paint buildings and create perspective in a painting with a building, this is the painting tutorial for you. You will learn a lot. I'm going to keep it simple, as I've said, but I will be doing a couple of different techniques with the palette knife and the fan brush, that kind of thing. So a really nice all-round kind of tutorial for you to learn different types of painting methods. All right, let's have a bit of fun with it. 16 by 12 canvas. It's not primed. I didn't prime this canvas. The reason being is sometimes when you buy a budget canvas, all right, they're not very well primed. But for some paintings, that's good. And for this particular painting, that's a good thing because I want layers to kind of dry in quickly and be able to put palette knife work on top, avoiding colours blending together, that type of thing. So it's good for some things. If you're painting buildings and stuff like that and you want to create texture, it's a good thing if the paints are drying quickly because you can get layer on top of layer without them mixing too much. So unprimed, 16 by 12 canvas, unprimed. I have a nice selection of colours there. I'll put the colours up on your screen in a moment. But look, let's have a bit of fun with this. I'm excited to do this and it's going to be a nice one, hopefully. Hopefully, a nice Irish landscape cottage. Let's grab your stuff and follow me along if you wish, okay? Again, thank you so much to my patrons. I have a really nice one coming on Patreon. It's going to be a big painting of a man sitting on the edge of like a waterway looking out with his fishing rod. Lots of very realistic reflections going across the water. It's going to be a pretty big painting. So there may be 3 or 4 parts to the next tutorial if you're over on Patreon, okay? But it's going to be a really in-depth, advanced painting tutorial for people who are trying to get ahead and just develop their skills a bit further, because I don't want to be painting just easy scenes all the time. I like to kind of push you a little bit and help you develop, because you won't learn otherwise. You have to learn different things, don't you? Anyway, enough of me blabbering on. Let's have a bit of fun with this. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to just take a small pointy brush first. I want to do a quick sketch of the scene. Now there it is. I think that's lovely. This is a perfect lesson for perspective, to create distance and perspective in a painting. I'm going to start by just drawing in the wall first. Let's come up to about here. A tiny bit of burnt umber, very thin. Just a little small sketch is all we need. I'll come over a bit further with the wall, I think. Let's just go there. The pillars are there, just so we can see a bit more of it. And it comes down and it just disappears into the ground, doesn't it? So look, we have a little pillar there. I'm going to create the perspective of the cottage. So I'm going to start around here and go off at a slight angle. So anything that's going off into distance will have an angle from the bottom upwards and from the top downwards. So basically, what I would say is find the center point of your canvas around here, okay? Anything above that line will get steeper and steeper as it goes up. And anything below that line will get steeper and steeper as it goes down. That's how you create simple sort of perspective in a painting. I'm just going to roughly put in the corner of the building here, just very roughly. So I'm going to go to about there and let's just stop it around there. Let's come up a little bit here. Now for the roof, we're going to come down at a very steep angle like this, okay? Already you can see it's going off into the distance, and then the roof comes up like that. It's a very rough kind of a roof, isn't it? Now I'm going to show a bit more of the cottage. All right, you see what I mean? So on the painting or on the photograph, you can see You can't see this side, but I'm going to put it in anyway. Over here, let's get a nice little sharp line like that. And it turns and comes up, doesn't it? So already we have our cottage put in. We don't need to paint windows and doors or anything like that. We have a little bit of a line coming across like that. That's the land off in the distance. And there we are. We're done. No more drawing. Let's just keep it simple. I'm going to do a nice bright blue sky on this. Let's dampen our brushes. Nice big brush. Let's dampen that. Take a little phthalo blue and some white. I think that's all we need. Phthalo blue and white. You could maybe add a little touch of magenta in there if you wanted, or crimson, or whatever you have. Just a little touch of a pinky colour to warm that ever so slightly. And as I said before, my canvas now is completely dry. There's no primer on this whatsoever. So this will dry very, very quickly. It'll kind of soak into the grain of the canvas very, very fast. And that's all right. I don't mind that. That's fine. But I want to get nice rich colours in this sky. A nice rich, rich blue. So don't be shy with your phthalo blue this time. Don't be shy. Normally I'm very careful with phthalo blue. It's a very rich colour. But on this occasion, I'm just going to put plenty of it in there. Nice rich blue sky. And you can see how thin my layers are. You can see right through the grain of the canvas. Now if you don't like that, and you like to have it a thick colour covering all of the canvas, just add plenty of white into the mix. The white will thicken it up, you see, and help you cover that canvas much better. So just add a little tiny bit of white. That's all you have to do. And we're coming on down to the horizon. A little bit more white. Just on the brush. No thinners. Just take a bit of white. Pop a little bit of white in there. Drag it across. Cover that canvas. So let's add one or two little clouds into this. And for the clouds, I'm simply going to use my palette knife. I think that's probably the best way of creating a nice cloud. Now, I think actually, looking at the photograph, that needs to be a bit darker up on top, doesn't it? Let's just take a bit more phthalo blue and a bit of magenta. Let's darken it slightly. I just want that lovely rich kind of a blue right on the top of the sky, fading down. Soften it down. There we go. There we are. Done. We don't need to do any more. Let's just take a palette knife, grab a bit of white. Tiny bit of white on the knife, and let's just go and create some simple clouds off in the distance. Very rough clouds. There's no direction to these really. You can kind of add a little bit of your own direction to them if you like. I might put another one sort of maybe not in the center. Let's go around here. Look, just scrape it on the flat of your knife. Scrape the paint around, creating some loose shapes. And that's all you need to do. You can soften it if you like a little bit more, or you can just leave it as it is. It's entirely up to yourself with clouds like this. You can just give it a little scrape and a scratch, soften them in slightly. That's all I'm going to do. Nice and simple, job done. I'm keeping this tutorial as simple as I can. I don't want to go overboard with detail, so I'm going to keep it nice and simple. The next thing I'm going to do is this green area. I think we need to get that out of the way and we can concentrate on our lovely cottage. Let's take some black. I'm going to go for a rich green on this. So a black with the yellow will always make a lovely rich green. A summery kind of a green. A summer's day green. And then add a touch of sienna in there. But plenty of yellow now, okay? I'm using lots of thick paint on this. Let me take a look. That's good. So I'm going to start with a nice dark green like that. I suppose it's kind of a browny green, isn't it? If you were adding blue into this, it would be a much cooler green. So the black and the yellow gives it just that warm, a warm kind of a feeling for a green. Now a bit more yellow and a touch of burnt sienna. And let's just pop a little of that in there. So I'm just putting this on very, very loose, look. Very, very loose. That probably looks like a very blacky green on camera. But I always start with a dark colour when I'm doing greens like this in a landscape. So I look at the photograph and I look at the darkest colour that's there, which is a very blacky green, isn't it? So I start with that colour. Then I simply take a fan brush and I put my lights on top of that. So I go into some cadmium yellow pale, and I'm going to take a touch of sienna as well. Now with that nice thick paint, maybe even a touch of white, look. Go with a touch of white as well. I'm going to then just start dabbing along and putting in, suggesting some highlights. You see? Now we could take a touch of blue if you want, just a touch of blue, just to blue it slightly, cool it down slightly. Go down here, add a touch of that colour in here and there, and it's really just to create a rough texture on the ground, because look, it's a rough landscape and I just want to create a very rough texture on the ground over here. That's all I want to do. I'm being very loose, look, I'm kind of swirling it around. Then as it comes down, I'm going to take some Naples yellow, burnt sienna and some white. And I'm going to just suggest some little bits, flicking it upwards, look. Dab it, flick, dab, flick. Just be very loose with the brush. I'm just trying to create a feeling of a very rough kind of a landscape. And you can see already we have that impression of a very rough landscape of fields, bushes, all that kind of thing. Lots going on. So that's kind of the basis of it done. I'm now just going to start adding a little colour into this. So look, some cadmium yellow pale on the corner of the fan brush, and we could just start adding little hints of a yellow here and there. And then we could go into some cadmium red. Let's imagine we have little red flowers here and there. You can't actually see what they are, but they look, when you see little bits of colour, it just gives you the impression of little, perhaps little flowers and stuff like that here and there. That's the sort of painting I like to create. Just a sort of impression of something without actually painting lots of detail. So you can see we already have so much going on here, don't we? So much going on. And it's all done just with a little dab of the brush here and there. Nothing fancy. Nice and simple. Look, just a couple of little dabs of white with some sienna, and we have some nice little bushes and little weeds and stuff like that growing up all over the place. That's it. We're done with that section. As I said, let's just keep it simple. You can add to this as you please. I'm now going to go to a nice flat brush, a simple, flat, cheap brush. Synthetic, soft brush. Let's start putting in the colour for the roof. I'm going to start with a nice mix of sienna and maybe burnt umber, alright? A little bit of thinners in this because, again, the canvas is quite dry. So a little bit of thinners in this. This is going to be a base coat. Look, just a nice base coat. Maybe even a touch of that whitey, creamy colour there. Let's just brighten it slightly. Yeah, that's a nice, I think, a nice base colour to start with. And let's just follow that down. And we'll fill that in with that colour all the way around. And don't make the lines too straight, okay? This is a very old cottage, a thatched cottage. It's not going to be perfectly straight, all those lines. There's going to be a bit of a wiggle here and there, and so on. it's never going to be absolutely perfect. Then we're going to take some burnt umber and a touch of black. And I'm going to start just going along the edge here with that burnt umber and black. And for me, I find the trick with painting something like this is graduation of your colour. So you're going from a light into a sort of a dark colour gradually, and you're softening them together with your brush. So I'm not being shy now with my darks here. I'm going to just sort of soften it upwards, allowing those colours to mix, you see? Just allow them to mix all the way. And one very important thing when doing this is always follow the direction of what you're painting. So you can see that the straw is coming down at an angle, so I'm pulling my brush at an angle to match, and that's giving me the direction. You see? Just little flicks with the brush like that. Softening it in, picking up paint and moving it around. You see? Now already we have a nice simple little roof there. But I'm going to go a step further with this. I'm going to use a knife. I'm going to use a palette knife. We have two options. We can use this one or this one. I think this one is not bad. This one might work as well. You know, I like to just try different things. I think I'll start with this one first. Let's take some sienna, put it in there, and take some burnt umber. Mix them in there. Maybe a touch of white. That'll make it nice and sort of chalky. A chalky shade. Maybe some Naples yellow as well. And I won't mix these too much. I want a slightly sort of a marbled effect. So what this is doing is creating that lovely texture of the thatch. And again, I'm following the lines, the direction of the thatch. Just following that direction. And this is giving me a nice thick impasto technique, which is fantastic. You see, you can almost see the little individual bits of thatch coming out, can't you? Let's try some burnt umber with a little black. And I might take a little touch of blue in there as well. Then, a little bit of white. So I'm going for sort of a grey, browny sort of a hue. I'm not inclined to go with pure black just for now. Not right now anyway. And I'm going to soften it across and just put that down at the bottom of the thatch. You see, down there. It's nice and dark down there, isn't it? And I now want to soften that up. Using the tip of my knife, just look, little tiny little flicks, softening it up. So you feel like, when you're doing this, you feel like you're painting individual bits of straw and hay, whatever it is, the thatch. It gives you that feeling, which is a nice, lovely, lovely little feeling. Now, I'll take more of that. I think it needs just a little bit more going on, just to soften out some of this brown. I think some of the brown may be a little bit on the bright side, so just pop a little bit of this immature knife, like that. Keeping it nice and simple. Now, you can dab as well, if you like. That'll kind of soften it all through for you. Nice and gently. Dab, 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 dab. Like so. Then I'll take some purpley colour. I'm going to go with some phaylo blue and magenta. Then a tiny bit of white. Now this purpley colour I'm using for the shadow under the eave. It looks like a black, but I think a deep purpley colour will just bring it to life a little bit better than a black. Okay, and just soften that in. Dab, 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 dab. Softening it away, bringing it across. And then perhaps just for the end, a little bit of black in with that. So I'm just adding colours as I go, really. That's the technique. Just grab some colours, add them in as you go. Now I will be putting some highlights on this as well. I'm going to be putting some nice bright highlights on this. So we're not finished just yet. A bit of black down under there. I want to get that nice and dark just around to give the impression of the thickness and the chunkiness of that thatch just at the end. So I've that much done. I'm now going to add, for the final section, a very whitey blue. I'm going to take a tiny bit of that blue and lots of white. And you can see we have some beautiful little highlights where the light is catching some of that thatch, isn't it? So I'm just going to take a very whitey kind of a blue and just here and there pop some of that on. I'm just very randomly kind of softening this in, pulling it downwards in that same direction. And it's just these little subtle highlights which will really sort of bring this to life. Just keep your knife nice and clean in between, that's all. Nice and clean. Little tiny flicks, look. Particularly just along where they meet, where the dark meets the main body of the roof there, just creating a little, almost like a little turn. And I think that's all we need to do. I'm happy enough with that. I'm going to move on and do the walls. The walls again, I'm keeping it nice and simple. I'm going to start with a soft bluey colour. Even this colour that we have here will do just fine. Let me have a look. Okay. Even though the walls in reality are a crisp kind of a white, with a scene like this you can see they're almost a soft blue, aren't they? And then we'll add lights onto onto that colour. So I start with a soft kind of a blue. You can see I have bits of brown and everything in my brush. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It's helping the composition. Let's go around there. It's good sometimes actually to have colours mixing together on your brush, because it creates a nice composition. It helps the composition, so to speak. So some of the colours from that roof are on my brush, and I'm just sort of merging them in together very loosely. You see, just be very rough with this. And then in under the eave, I'm just going to very roughly put in that bit of bluey colour. And now look, you can see I'm mixing with some of the black. That's fine, and that brown. That's perfectly fine. Don't be afraid of mixing some colours together. Now, just grab me a bit of white on my brush, just to separate that from the green. And then I'll just start pulling out some white with some Naples yellow on this. And you can see quite clearly on the photograph, there's no fine point where they change direction here. There's no kind of a dark and a light, but I am going to just create a little bit of a difference with my brush, just to give it more of a two-dimensional feel. Now a little bit of Naples yellow and some white towards the bottom here. That'll give it a little bit of a nice little bit of a glow as it comes down. So you can see how rough I'm being with this. I'm just pulling my brush around in all directions. I'll take a little bit of that bright colour and maybe go over here, add a bit of a glow. Softening it in. And that's even not looking too bad so far, is it? The next step I'm going to do is, again, with my palette knife. I'm going to go back to my palette knife and I want to create lots of lovely texture on this. So don't worry about your windows and doors or anything like that for now. I'm going to take some Naples yellow with some white. And maybe a touch of cadmium yellow. And I just simply want to create a nice, bright, it's, I suppose, almost the sun hitting the wall type of effect. So at the same time, the knife is making it very rough. So it's a very rough wall, very old cottage, if you understand what I mean. And I'm just sort of moving the paint around to create lots of rich texture on the walls. You see? Sort of scraping it through. I'm softening it in some places, and in other places I'm not. But that's all about getting the roughness of the wall, the really rough texture of the old stone brick and the very old plaster. Now I'm going to soften them where they meet as well, just because, why not? And I go up here and just rub my palette knife along the paint, just again creating some texture here and there. You see? There's so much you can do with a palette knife, isn't there? Isn't it just amazing? Now I'm taking some Naples yellow and a touch of cadmium red, and then lots of white. I have a very bright, kind of a warm pinky shade, and I want to pop a little bit of that in here as well, because I'm going over blue, so that will really soften out the blue and tone it down. A very kind of a bright pinky shade will soften the blue a little. So I put the blue on, this dark on purpose, so I can create lovely bright texture over the blue. And you can just keep going for as long as possible, as long as you want. Now, I made a little mistake there, but that's fine. Let's just take some white, pop some white over that, soften it in. Just being very rough, very random with this. Take a little bit of bright colour. Let's go up here and just create some brightness under the eave. Let's stand back and take a look. Oh, that's not bad now, is it? I want to now get some nice warmth under the eave. And I'm looking at the reference photograph. I can see bits of brown. I can see bits of purple. So I'm taking some burnt umber and a little touch of magenta. And I'm just going to try that first. See what happens. If it doesn't work, we can change it. Let's just rub a little bit of that in underneath there. Softening it down with the knife. And the same along here. Soften it in. Then I'll try a little bit of dark bluey colour. Let's get a bit of blue into that bit of black that we had earlier. Bit of pink. I'm taking just sort of, I'm mixing up colours here now, I'll be honest with you at this stage, just to get a nice shadowy kind of a shade in under there. And let's just soften it down. Just with the knife very gently, look, round in little circles, soften it down. And that's okay. It's looking quite nice now so far, isn't it? The next thing is that little bit of dark colour we have. It's just bits of moss and all that kind of stuff on the wall. So a little bit of burnt umber, maybe a touch of black. And I'm just going to sort of create little impressions of, say, the brickwork, suggesting just one or two small lines like this, you see. I'm just dragging it very randomly. It's such an easy technique. To do. Just grab your knife and just start bringing it down. And already you can see how we've created that little bit of texture just very, very easily. And just one or two over here. I try not to keep everything kind of in one spot, so I move it around. A little bit here and there on the main building as well, the front of the building. Only just to bring it around, so it's not just on one piece. Do you understand what I mean? I think that's quite nice. Already we have a lovely little cottage, almost painted except for windows and doors. Wasn't that just nice and simple? Now the next thing I want to do is just with some crisp white paint. This is the last step. Crisp white. I want to really just put on some nice bright whitey colours, just to really highlight that side of the cottage. Just dabbing it and just kind of dragging it slightly here and there. And could I just add one or two here as well, if we like? Why not? It's our painting, we can do what we like, my friends. That's what I always say. There's no rules. We can put what we like into the painting because it's our painting. We're the ones creating it. We can do what we like. I think that's enough. There we go. That's all we need to do. Now I will just rough that line up a little bit. You see how that line is very sort of straight here. Just going to bring a little bit of black down here and there. Just make it a little bit wavy. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight at all. You see what I mean? Let's just rough it up a little bit. So we're done with that already. Isn't that amazing how much you can do in just 5 or 10 little minutes? I'm going to do the windows next and the doors. I'll start with the little shadow side of the windows, which there's a little dark line. It's just simply a dark line, so I want to show you how I do that. I'm going to take a shadowy colour, some blue and some magenta. A little bit of blue, a little bit of magenta on the tip of the brush, not too much. I'm going to start with the first window here. I'm just going to put a little dark down for the recess of the window, okay? Like that. Now you can make it thicker or thinner, whatever you like. I'm going to make a nice thick one. And I'm going to do another one just here. Just slightly smaller. And I could maybe bring that up a bit more. And a little one just to suggest the very end down here. All right, so you're following so far? Then I'll take my smaller pointy brush, any small pointy brush that you have. I'll take a bit of magenta, little white and some naples yellow. And going into the darker colour, just put a slight little piece like that. You can even just take some naples yellow on its own to create a little sort of a highlight of the sun reflecting on the top. It's a very, very small, subtle highlight, but you can see it. And then I'm going to take a little bit of blue, because if you look at the photograph, you'll see there's a lot of blue here and there in that. Then a touch of black, just for up around the top. We've a nice little graduation going on. Now, for the most important part, into some rich cadmium red. Let's get nice thick cadmium red on the brush, and let's paint the window frames. This is the exciting part. I like this. This is where it all seems to come to life. Let's get a bit of red there, bring a bit of red down there. And this is very important. This angle comes at a slight angle downwards, because we're following the perspective of our drawing. Don't worry if we make it too long, it's fine. And we'll put another little bit here. And another little bit down here. And you can darken some of this if you like as well. And because I'm working on lots of thick paint now, this is quite tricky, but if you like, you can just leave it dry, by all means. But I like this effect. I like working wet into wet. It's just very satisfying. I'm going to take a little burnt sienna and mix that with the red, just to give me a richer, deeper kind of a red. And then I'm going to bring one across like that, and another one across like this. And what we're doing by doing this is we're actually forming the right hand edge of the window. That's what we're doing. We're forming that right hand edge. So if I show you what I mean, I'm going to put a kind of a dark grey first in between these, okay? Show you now, show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to find the edge of my window frame here, come down like that. So that's creating the edge of the wall. You understand? Now we can take some of this red out. A little bit too much there, isn't there? Pop a little bit of white in there, just to bring that back a little. And we'll darken this one over here. I'll take a bit of black just to give this some nice depth in here, and I'm just really kind of dabbing the colour in here and there. And get some burnt umber, pop a little burnt umber in there. We're creating some movement in the windows as well. So I don't want to paint just a black window, if you understand what I mean. I want to give the impression that there's stuff in the windows as well. Little bits and pieces. And a small narrow one down here, because we can't really see that one anyway, can we? So I'll go back to my small brush, take some black, and I'm going to put just a suggestion of, see, I'm kind of creating detail without creating detail, if that makes sense. I'm giving the impression of detail in the windows, but it's literally just a couple of little marks with your brush. That's all it is. A little bit of a shadow under the window sills. Again, just leave the brush dance around very gently. Now what I will do, just on the right hand side, perhaps with a little touch of white, I'm just going to sharpen up the edges of some of those. But again, they don't have to be perfect, do they? As I said, it's a very old building, so just a little touch of it is fine. Then I'll take, again, touch of red with a touch of black, and I put a very subtle darkness just across the top of the windowsills. Now, I think that's all right. I know it's not perfect, but this is stuff that you're going to kind of learn as you go along. There. I'd say that's okay. We just have to do a door. I'll start with that nice dark red colour. Bit of red, a little bit of brown, or black, whatever you have, and we just put the door in. Then I go with my small brush, back into the small brush again, pop some nice rich red. And then into my black. And just let's create the angle of this up here. And just soften some black here and there, leaving a bit of red. Now, wasn't that just a nice simple way of painting a nice little cottage? It's inviting. It's not, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated. It really doesn't. You can make it complicated if you like, but it really doesn't have to be complicated, I'll be honest. Suggest one or two crosses for the window frames, just here and there, look. There could be curtains and all that kind of stuff hanging up inside there. And that's it, my friends. I think the cottage is done. I don't think we need to do any more on the cottage. I'm just going to darken some of this up here. Alright, they're just little things that I'm noticing as I'm going along, and maybe just soften it in slightly. Now I want to sit that cottage down on the ground, so I need to get some nice dark colour, some brown, and a little touch of phaylo blue. That'll give us a nice dark green. And I'm just going to sit that down like that, and then I'm just going to almost kind of soften it upwards into the stonework as well, and the wall, the plaster work. Very gently with my fan brush, I'm just going to start softening it upwards. So it's almost then kind of merging into one, isn't it? You see that? Just a little bit. Swirl it around, soften it together, do the same with the ground. So we have a nice transition from a light down to a dark, and it just disappears into the ground, doesn't it? Okay, just like that, nice and simple. Then a little touch of naples yellow, and just cut up in front of that again. Some weeds and all that kind of thing. So when you think about it, we're 90% there already, aren't we? We've only painted 40 minutes and we're 90% there. So let's start the wall, nice and simple. Again, and I'm keeping this, I hope I'm keeping this simple for you. Just, you know, I don't want to go into too much detail with things. I know I did around the windows and stuff like that, but look, it's a simple little thing. Let's make a nice purple again for the walls. Magenta, phaylo blue. Little bit of thinners again, and some white. Now, we have a nice grey colour there, don't we? That will do nicely. Nice kind of bluey grey colour, or mauve, should I say. I'll start with this colour And then what I do is maybe just take a bit of cadmium red as well. Fill that in with that colour, a nice deep colour. Because as you know, a lot of this will be covered with the palette knife anyway. Okay, that's good. Go a bit higher. Again, we can fix all these lines with our palette knives, okay? So don't worry. Let's go into some black. And maybe a touch of cadmium red as well. That'll give us that sort of browny colour. Now what I'm going to do is, with some black and some brown, look, I'm going to go along and just create little individual stones. And this is what I do when I'm painting walls. It's just nice and simple. And this is just first stage. With the side of the brush, any flat brush, just start putting in little marks like this. So we're going to start developing little bits of stone and stuff like that. Now in general, in reality I suppose, it gets darker as it gets to the bottom because it gets dirty from the wet grass and all that, so they do get a little darker as they come down towards the bottom. So I will just start darkening it towards the bottom and then softening it up. A little bit of dark green as well. And this is again just the basis for the palette knife, to do our palette knife work. Okay, we stop at that. Let's go back to our palette knife again. Small palette knife, and this lovely bright top. Let's take some Naples yellow and some white. Now I do have a little bit of mauve on that as well. It doesn't matter, just a nice bright sunlit kind of a colour. And let's just start putting in those nice bright tops and around the side like that. Just grab some nice rich colour, whichever you have on your palette. Just once it's a nice bright sunlit kind of a colour. And you can see it's just sort of up and down like that. It's just up and down everywhere, isn't it? And then you can even take some burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna, and rub some of that through as well, just to give it a bit of texture, a bit of gradient here and there. I go across the top of the wall as well. Remember, very important, keep cleaning your brush in between. And we go across here, creating a nice bright top. And again, down that side, I'm going to show the sun hitting the wall, okay? But you can see it's not straight. The lines are just very sort of wobbly, aren't they? And we do have one slightly higher than the other. I can see that. So I'm just going to go a bit higher with this one over here. Then I'm going to go into some dark purpley colours. Let's get some magenta and some blue, some white and a touch of black. A nice rich dark kind of a grey shade. And I'm just going to go around that wall, you see, just creating some texture. And this then as well, I suppose, it just helps separate the light from the dark at the same time, doesn't it? Some nice texture across the wall, scraping it, dragging it. So you can see how much fun this is. It's just a very nice, relaxing way to paint, isn't it? It's so relaxing just to sit there and leave a palette knife do the work for you. Drag it around, create some texture here and there, look. Some burnt umber, a little bit of that grey. Creating a nice texturous wall. Right, let me see, what will we do next? I'm going to take some blue, because keeping with the shadows, nice bluey colour, I'm going to just start putting in some rich blue for some of the stones here and there. You can see they do have a nice sort of rich bluey shade, and that little bit of blue will just help bring out the shadows. So I need some white. Now where is my titanium white gone? Over here, I think. There it is. My apologies, I don't want to be showing you my bald spot. My hair is getting quite thin lately. Apologies for that. Now again, some white, some blue. So you see, just kind of creating little bits of shadow. You see the way that blue sort of brings out the shadows, just a little. And then let's go over that with some white here and there. So in essence, in reality, it's kind of a very bright whitey kind of a brick wall. But in a painting, when you add these little bits of blue, it just sort of, for some, I don't know, it just sort of brings everything to life. Now I'll take some brown and a little black as well, and I'm going to just give it some darkness as well in between. So just again, scraping the brush around. And I'm almost just kind of mixing it together, scratching it together. I get some black for this side, put some black along the bottom and scrape it around. And I'll do the same for this side, bring some black along and scrape it along, softening it up, you see? So we're creating this lovely, rich, colourful wall, a very old wall. Isn't that lovely? I'm just going to pick out one or two of the bricks. Some magenta, Naples yellow, a bit of white, a little bit of that bluey colour. So it's a soft pinky hue. I'm just going to start picking out some of the bricks here and there. And some may be slightly bigger than others. And lastly, and this is probably the most important part of the wall, painting any wall like this. So you've done all your knife work. The next step is to get some very fine black paint on your brush and put in some suggestions of darks in between those bricks and in underneath as well, just to separate the bricks in little parts, and I suppose to give you the impression of a brick wall. So I'm just putting in some little darks here and there. You see what I mean? And just one or two is all you need. And suddenly, it starts coming to life, doesn't it? Nice and simple. Just a couple of small lines to suggest little gaps between the bricks and the stones. Stones, really, that's what they are, they're stones. So little gaps between the stones. just sort of little squiggly lines here and there around some of those lights and darks. Now, you only need a couple, because this is just an impression, isn't it? It's a very loose impression of a stone wall. Just have a bit of fun, my friends. That's all I'm going to say. Have a little bit of fun. All I have left to do is bring this down, maybe stick in a bit of a gate or something like that. Let's take some yellow and some black. Bring this down here. Okay, I'll take a bit of a lighter colour. Dab that with my brush, just to create some land, crosshair. And don't worry, we'll make all of this sit down as well in just a moment, okay? Not to worry. A bit of light catching some of these. I'm going to dab that, leave it disappear into the building slightly. And I'm thinking the fan brush. I'm going to make a nice rich green, look, some cadmium yellow, burnt sienna, and let's just pop that along here. And we're just going to sit that wall down into the ground. I'm also going to take some Naples yellow with some white and some of the cadmium yellow, pop a little couple of weeds and all that kind of thing coming up into it like there. You see, just helping sit the wall down into the earth below. A touch of burnt sienna. Make it all nice and rough. So let's imagine it's been there so long, no one's lived in it, it's probably just left there. It's all kind of overgrown with this and with that. And just like that, we have the grass done. And we've one final job, my friends, a little gate. I'm going to grab some red, and I'm going to pop a little red gate in there. Doesn't have to be too fussy or particular. Again, it's a very old gate. It's probably falling apart. So let's just create a little bit of a gate. Have a bit of fun with this. Take a little bit of black. Pop a little bit of black in there as well. You can see what I'm doing. I'm just literally having a bit of fun with the brush. That's all I'm doing. A little bit of fun. Take a bit of Naples yellow. Pop a little highlight here and there. Take a little bit of white. Suggest a nice little highlight on the gate here and there. Pop a little light on the ground. And that's kind of it, really, my friends. It's just, you can keep going with this, have a bit of fun with it if you like. You don't really have to. I am going to put just one or two birds in the sky, only to give it a little bit of life. Now, I was going to put some clothes and stuff like that hanging as well, I don't know, should I or would it look nice? Maybe it would. So look, maybe there's some life in there after all. Maybe someone is actually living there. So we could just put a suggestion of a towel and maybe get some yellow, put a suggestion of, I don't know, a t-shirt or something like that. Get some pink. And we could take some blue, put a pair of trousers there, blowing in the wind. I'm just kind of, you know, messing around, that's all. I'm just trying this, having a bit of fun. And I suppose we better put a little clothesline in there, won't we? I suppose we'll have to, will we? A little bit of a clothesline. Let's go like this. And like this. And then a little bit of white. Just a tiny bit of white, just a little bit of highlight there and there. And we're done, my friends. We are done. I hope you've enjoyed this. I must say, this was immense fun. It was so much fun. And I would like to say thank you so much for joining me. It has been a pleasure to paint this for you. Now, if you notice, one thing I noticed was this doesn't have a chimney. In the reference photograph, I think there's a bit of a chimney at the back of the roof. But you could always just add a little piece in, suggest it. Will we add a little bit of a chimney in there? I think maybe we should, because it just may not look right, would it? Maybe we should just put a little bit of a chimney in here. Because I think it's something that people may notice and say, well, you know, every cottage needs a chimney, doesn't it? So where is the chimney? So I'll just put one in, up on top, a bit of white, like so, and maybe a little sienna for the top of the chimney up there. Again, it's a very old, very old building. So let's just be very loose with all of this. How's that? Nice and simple. And I do have one other idea. Now, you may not agree with this, and you may agree with this, but I'm thinking, do you know what might be nice? How about some smoke coming out of this chimney? I think that might be quite a nice idea. Let's get some dark grey here, look. A little bit of dry grey on the brush, very, very dry. And let's just go like this, with that little bit of grey. And come across the sky, and then we'll add a little touch of white into that as well, and bring it right across that sky, so the smoke is disappearing off up into the sky, the wind is blowing it along like that. How is that? I'm quite happy now. That's looking nice, isn't it? And now I'm definitely calling this one finished. So there we go, my friends. finished. So, oh, my apologies. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. It's been fun, a lot of fun. I'm very happy with that. Lots of thick paint. Have some fun with your palette knife. Just grab your palette knife and stick paint on. You just never know what's going to happen. It's just so easy sometimes to grab a palette knife and have a bit of fun. It's nice for a change rather than using little brushes for details and all of that kind of stuff. That's very nice. I'm very happy with that. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you very, very soon, my friends. Happy painting, and keep it simple. Have fun.